And speaking of Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, a lot of people have been wondering, with all the properties that he has acquired or leased here in Shreveport, exactly how many there are and then what's next.
985,000 square feet of film and television studio, a 30-year lease on a stretch of downtown in a city he had never lived in, a development deal worth $124 million.
Curtis 50 Cent Jackson's plans to make Shreveport an entertainment industry hub just moved one step closer to becoming reality.
Signed with the state government, a bottle of Cognac that sells for $25,000, and a key to a Louisiana city handed to a kid who grew up on the corners of South Jamaica, Queens. Most people know him as a rapper. Some know him as a television producer. Almost no one is telling the real story, the one hiding inside the numbers. The story of how Curtis James Jackson, the man the world calls 50 Cent, quietly became one of the largest property holders in an American city most of his fans could not find on a map. This is the fortune almost no one is reporting correctly. The focus here is black wealth, black power, and black legacy. The empires built on ownership instead of applause, traced through boardrooms and balance sheets in cities all over the world. And what you are about to hear is not the story you already know, not the mixtapes, not the feuds, not the bulletproof vest. This is the untold side. The deeds, the equity, and the slow, deliberate machine he built while everyone else was busy watching the show. If that is the kind of story you came for, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this one rewards patience. To understand the empire, you have to start where he started. The Queen's Blueprint. Curtis James Jackson III was born on July 6, 1975, in South Jamaica, Queens. It was one of the harder corners of New York City in one of its harder decades. His mother raised him alone, and she was gone before he reached his teens. He was passed to his grandparents, into a crowded house, into a neighborhood where the economy on the street ran faster than the economy on paper. He learned to fight. He boxed in the Golden Glove circuit, and the discipline stuck even when the boxing did not. And he learned to hustle, in the original and most literal sense of that word, on the corners, in a trade that ended careers and ended lives. That world gave him exactly one transferable skill that would matter later. He learned how to read a market, manage risk, and reinvest a profit before anyone handed him a business card. Then came the moment that set everything else in motion. In the year 2000, outside a house in Queens, he was shot 9 times at close range. 9. He survived. But the man who walked out of that recovery had been handed something most people never get. Proof, written in his own body, that the street economy was a dead end with a short timeline. He needed a new game, one where the asset could not be taken from him by a bullet or a rival. He found it through music. A connection to Jam Master Jay of Run DMC pointed him toward the studio, and a raw, relentless run of mixtapes eventually reached the 2 most important ears in the industry. Eminem and Dr. Dre signed him. And here is the thesis that the rest of this story will prove again and again. Fame is a spotlight, and spotlights move on. Ownership is a foundation, and foundations only get heavier. He was about to earn the first kind of money. The whole point of his life would become converting it into the second. The foundation years. In February of 2003, his debut album, Get Rich or Die Tryin', arrived under Interscope Records with Eminem and Dr. Dre behind it. It did not sell well. It detonated. Estimates put it past 12 million copies worldwide, with some counts running higher, carried by a song, In Da Club, that became impossible to escape. The follow-up, The Massacre, added millions more. Across his catalog, he has reportedly sold more than 30 million albums. That is real money, generational money, by the standards of almost any working musician. But pay attention to how he treated it, because this is where the icon and the owner split into 2 different people. The conventional path for a rapper at that altitude is to spend the fame while the fame is hot. Cars, jewelry, the lifestyle that the music describes, he bought into that world too. But underneath it, he was already treating the music money as seed capital, not as a finish line. Look at what he did with his own record label, G Unit Records. He did not just release his own albums. He signed and launched other artists, names like Lloyd Banks, Tony Yayo, and for a time, The Game. And he turned the G-Unit name into a brand that extended past music entirely into a clothing line and a sneaker deal with Reebok. Most performers are a product. He was already trying to become a platform. The instinct was visible that early. Take the attention the music generated and route it into things he could own and sell long after the song stopped charting. You can see the philosophy most clearly in something he did 2 decades later. In 2023, to mark the 20th anniversary of that debut album, he launched a global concert run called the Final Lap Tour. It crossed North America, Europe, Asia, and Oceania. More than 100 shows, more than 1 million tickets sold. Billboard reported the gross at north of $100 million, making him only the second rapper in history to clear that mark on a single tour. But the number that matters is not the gross, it is the structure. He self-financed the tour. He took on the risk himself, which meant he kept a far larger share of the reward instead of splitting it with the usual promoters. That is not how a performer thinks. That is how an owner thinks. The music was never the structure. It was always the foundation. And on top of that foundation, he started building something the radio could never play. The pivot to ownership. The single most important business decision of his life did not involve a recording booth. It involved a bottle of flavored water. In the mid-2000s, a beverage company called Glaceau offered him a deal to promote their product, vitamin water. The standard celebrity move would have been to take a flat endorsement fee. A check, a commercial. Done. He did something different. He negotiated for equity, an ownership stake in the company itself, tied to its success rather than to his appearance fee. In 2007, Coca-Cola acquired Glaceau in a deal reported at around $4.1 billion. Because he owned a piece, his payout was not a fee, it was a windfall. The figures reported range widely, from roughly $60 million to $150 million before taxes, and the exact number has never been confirmed publicly. But the lesson was permanent, and he has repeated it in interviews ever since. Equity over salary, a stake over a check. Own the thing, do not just advertise the thing. From that moment on, he stopped collecting endorsements and started collecting companies, and that brings us to the asset that gives this story its title. The Shreveport Compound. Drive into downtown Shreveport, Louisiana, in Caddo Parish, near the Texas border, and you will find a piece of infrastructure that does not fit the city's reputation. A film and television production complex spanning 985,000 square feet, sound stages, production offices, a campus built to manufacture content at industrial scale. It is called G-Unit Studios. He officially opened it in April of 2024. And by reasonable industry accounting, it is the second largest Black-owned production studio in the world, sitting behind only Tyler Perry's operation in Atlanta. Read that again. Not the second largest in Louisiana, in the world. This was not a vanity purchase. It was a campaign. The Shreveport City Council approved a 30-year lease agreement with him, a unanimous vote, before the doors even opened. He took over the existing Stageworks facility. He moved on a production campus formerly tied to Millennium Studios, and the deal kept growing. As recently as early 2026, the state of Louisiana finalized a development plan in which his company, G-Unit Film and Television, commits roughly $124 million to renovate and build across multiple downtown venues, including a dome-style immersive venue and a green space park. The state agreed to provide around $50 million in performance-based funding toward the infrastructure. So a kid from Queens did not just rent a building in Louisiana. He negotiated directly with a state government, was commended by the state legislature, and was handed a key to the city by the mayor of Shreveport. The street kid became the development partner. Fame depreciates, ownership compounds, and the compounding was just getting started because one studio was never the plan. The secondary holdings. A studio needs a city around it to function, so he started acquiring the city. Reporting out of Shreveport describes him buying up commercial property across the downtown core, to the point where he has become one of the more significant private property owners in the area. The studio is the anchor. The surrounding real estate is the leverage. When you own the production facility and you own the buildings around it, you are not a tenant of the local economy. You are a landlord of it. This is the difference between a celebrity who films in a city and a businessman who buys the city. A celebrity brings a production, shoots for a few months, and leaves the money on a plane home. He did the opposite. He planted the studio, bought the surrounding ground, signed a 30-year commitment, and tied his name to the long-term redevelopment of an entire downtown. The economic ripple, the jobs, the rents, the foot traffic, those do not flow away when the cameras stop. They flow to whoever holds the deeds. And increasingly, in that part of Louisiana, that is him. But the buildings are only the visible part of the empire. The real wealth, the part that scales while he sleeps, lives in something you cannot photograph. The equity layer. A building is worth what a building is worth. Intellectual property is worth whatever the audience keeps paying for it forever. In 2014, he became the executive producer and a star of a television series called Power on the Starz network. It was a hit. Then it became something rarer than a hit. It became a universe. Power spawned an entire franchise of spin-off series, including Power Book 2, Ghost, and Power Book 3, Raising Kanan. Alongside other shows, he added a separate franchise with BMF, the story of the Black Mafia family, also on Starz. In 2018, he signed an overall deal with Starz reported to be worth as much as $150 million. Now, connect the structure. As an executive producer with back-end ownership, he does not just get paid once when an episode airs. He earns from the franchise as it lives on, through reruns, through streaming, through every new spin-off built on the world he created. He owns the machine, not just the moment. And he kept expanding the machine. His company struck a development deal with Fox Entertainment, produced a true crime series for Fox Nation, and put projects into development with platforms like Hulu. The studio in Shreveport is the factory. The Power universe and these network deals are the products that factory exists to make. Think about what that vertical actually means. He owns the company that develops the shows. He owns the studio where the shows get filmed. He increasingly owns the real estate around that studio. A traditional creator sells a show to a network and walks away with a fee. He built a chain where almost every link in the production belongs to him, which means almost every dollar that moves through that production passes across something he owns. That is the entire game. Control the pipe and you collect from everything that flows through it. If you are getting value from this breakdown, take 1 second and subscribe. The whole point here is to map how black wealth actually gets built, the ownership layer beneath the fame, and there is a new story like this one every week. Now, the empire has one more floor, and it is the one with his name literally on the label. The brand and operating businesses. He did not stop at owning a stake in someone else's beverage. He built his own. Sire Spirits is his liquor company, and the word that matters is his. He owns it. Its flagship products are Branson Cognac and Le Chemin du Roi Champagne, positioned squarely in the ultra-premium market, going head-to-head with the luxury labels associated with other moguls. This is the same equity lesson from Vitamin Water, applied a second time, except now he is not the minority partner. He is the house. And the brand plays at the very top of the market. The champagne has commanded headlines for a single bottle, selling at auction for $325,000. In late 2025, the company launched a special edition cognac, the Branson 505, in a collaboration with the Crystal House Lalique, priced at $25,000 a bottle. He has also pulled the brand into the world of professional sports, with partnerships tied to NBA franchises. Around all of it sits the broader G-Unit brand itself, which long ago outgrew the record label it started as, extending into film, television, and consumer products. This was not even his first move in the liquor business. Years earlier, he had taken a stake in Effin Vodka, and reporting suggests he later exited that position for a figure said to be around $60 million. Although the exact terms were never fully confirmed, and the brand's owner described the relationship as ongoing. Treat that number as an estimate rather than a fact, but notice the pattern underneath it. He uses the early ventures to learn the category, then comes back to own the category outright. Effin was the apprenticeship. Sire Spirits is the company he actually controls. So, stack the floors of this building, the street education at the bottom, the music as the foundation, the vitamin water windfall as the first conversion of fame into equity, the Power franchise as owned intellectual property, the Shreveport studio and downtown real estate as physical infrastructure, and Sire Spirits as a brand he controls outright. Every layer reinforces the one beneath it. That is not a portfolio. That is architecture. And the smartest architects always build one more thing that the spreadsheet alone cannot explain: the legacy lever. He runs a philanthropic vehicle called the G-Unity Foundation, focused on education, hunger relief, and community development, with programs operating in New York, in Louisiana, and internationally. It would be easy to file that under charity and move on. That would miss the point entirely. Look at where the programs run: New York, where he came from; Louisiana, where he now builds. The giving is not separate from the empire. It is wired into the same map as the empire. When he invests in a community in Shreveport while opening a studio that employs that same community, the goodwill and the business are not two different projects. They are one strategy with two outputs. This is legacy as architecture rather than legacy as a plaque. The studio creates jobs. The jobs create stability. The foundation deepens roots in the exact places where the assets sit. And the next generation inherits not just money, which can be spent in a lifetime, but ownership, which can be inherited across several. The multiplier is the whole idea. He is not trying to be remembered as a man who was rich. He is trying to leave behind a system that keeps producing wealth after he is gone. The life now. Today, at 50 years old, the picture is clear. He is no longer primarily a musician who dabbles in business. He is a media executive who used to be a musician. He filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy back in 2015, emerged from it by 2017, and rebuilt on a steadier base than the one that preceded the fall. His net worth is now estimated by various outlets at around $100 million, with ranges that run lower and higher depending on how the private holdings are valued. Because so much of what he owns is private, the precise figure simply cannot be verified, and anyone quoting an exact number to the dollar is guessing. But the shape of it is not in doubt. He runs a studio empire in Louisiana. He controls a spirits company. He owns the back end of a television franchise. He holds real estate across a downtown. And he negotiates with state governments as a peer. The man who was shot 9 times in Queens spends his time now deciding which city gets his next campus. The synthesis. So let us return to where we started. 985,000 square feet of studio, a 30-year lease, a $124 million development deal, a $25,000 bottle, a key to a city. The title of this video says he owns a film studio in Louisiana. That is true, but it undersells it. What he actually owns is the thing the studio represents. He owns access, the ability to walk into a state capitol and shape a redevelopment plan. He owns capital deployed into equity and brands instead of burned on lifestyle. And he owns deeds, the literal land beneath a downtown, the buildings, the campus, the long-term lease that ties a city's future to his name. He does not own a building in Shreveport. He owns a position in Shreveport. There is a difference, and that difference is the entire lesson. The fame was never the wealth. The fame was the down payment. Everything after it, the studio, the spirits, the franchise, the foundation, the land, was him trading a depreciating asset for compounding ones, over and over, until the math could no longer be ignored. Icon to owner. That was always the plan. Now, I want to hear from you. Which part of this empire surprised you the most? Was it the 985,000 square foot studio in Louisiana? The vitamin water equity move that turned a water deal into a 9-figure exit? The Power franchise that pays him long after the cameras stopped? Or the fact that he quietly became one of the biggest property owners in a city he never grew up in? Tell me in the comments. And if this is the kind of black wealth story you want more of, the ownership behind the fame, subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week, another icon, another hidden empire, another untold story of how the spotlight became a foundation.